Kremlin's steel coffin, is Russia's army grinding to a halt? For decades, the world viewed Russia's military as a force to be reckoned with, a juggernaut capable of overwhelming its adversaries with sheer numbers and firepower. But today, that image is rapidly unraveling, replaced by scenes of stalled convoys and battered equipment. From superpower to scrap heap, military factories fail to keep pace. Once the pride of Russian industry, these factories now struggle to produce even basic equipment, let alone the advanced weaponry needed for modern warfare. Shortages of critical components, outdated machinery, and a shrinking workforce have all contributed to a dramatic slowdown in production. The myth of an unstoppable Russian military has crumbled in Ukraine's mud and fire. Images of Russian tanks bogged down and convoys decimated by precision strikes have shattered the illusion of invincibility. Each day, the gap between Russia's ambitions and its actual capabilities grows wider. Once poised to seize Kyiv in days, Russia now faces a slow-motion collapse, its arsenal gutted by relentless Ukrainian resistance. Ukrainian defenders, armed with Western technology and unyielding resolve, have turned the tide, forcing Russia into a costly war of attrition it can ill afford. The question isn't if Russia will run short of modern equipment, but when. The clock is ticking, and 2026 looms. Every month, Russia's reserves dwindle further, and the prospect of replenishing them grows more remote. Russia's initial show of force, thousands of tanks, jets, and artillery, has been systematically dismantled by a nimble, Western-armed Ukraine. Advanced anti-tank missiles, drones, and real-time intelligence have given Ukraine a decisive edge, turning Russian hardware into smoldering wrecks. The war has become a brutal numbers game, and Russia is losing. Each destroyed vehicle, each lost soldier, chips away at Russia's ability to sustain the fight. Ukrainian victories, once thought impossible, are now routine. Sanctions, labor shortages, and catastrophic losses have exposed the rot beneath Russia's military might. The economy strains under the weight of international isolation, while skilled workers flee or are conscripted, leaving factories idle and supply lines stretched to the breaking point. We'll break down the staggering losses, the industrial failures, and the Ukrainian tactics, especially drones, that are accelerating Russia's decline. These small, inexpensive weapons have become a nightmare for Russian forces, striking with precision and evading traditional defenses. By 2026, Russia may reach a breaking point. Out of modern equipment, out of options, and out of time. The consequences could reshape not just the battlefield, but the entire balance of power in the region. The era of Russian military dominance is ending before our eyes. What comes next will define the future of Eastern Europe, and perhaps the world. The numbers tell a story of devastation, a story written not just in statistics, but in the shattered steel and lost lives scattered across the battlefields of Ukraine. Each figure represents a moment of destruction, a turning point in the conflict, and a blow to Russia's military might. The scale of destruction is almost unimaginable. Entire fields have become graveyards for armored vehicles, with the twisted remains of tanks and personnel carriers stretching as far as the eye can see. These are not just machines, but the backbone of Russia's ground forces now reduced to smoldering wrecks. The numbers tell a story of devastation, repeated over and over with every new offensive, every failed assault, and every desperate retreat. Each abandoned tank is a testament to the ferocity of the fighting and the resilience of Ukrainian defenders. Open-source trackers like Oryx, which meticulously document visual evidence, confirm that over 3,000 Russian tanks have been lost since the invasion began. This staggering figure includes hundreds of Russia's most advanced models, such as the T-90M and T-80BVM, tanks once touted as symbols of Russian technological superiority, now lying in ruins. These aren't just numbers. Each destroyed tank means a lost crew, a shattered family, and a critical asset wiped from Russia's arsenal. The human cost is immense, with every burned-out vehicle marking the end of a story, the loss of experience, and a blow to morale. The devastation extends far beyond tanks. Over 6,000 armored vehicles, ranging from infantry fighting vehicles to troop transports, have been destroyed or captured. More than 1,000 artillery systems once used to pound Ukrainian positions now lie silent or have been turned against their former owners. With so much equipment lost, Russian ground troops are increasingly left exposed. Their mobility is crippled, their firepower gutted, and their ability to mount effective offensives severely diminished. Many are forced to rely on outdated vehicles or even fight on foot, making them vulnerable to Ukrainian counterattacks. The losses in the air are equally severe. More than 100 Russian fighter jets and over 130 helicopters have been shot down or destroyed on the ground. Each aircraft lost is not just a blow to Russia's air force, but a loss of highly trained pilots and irreplaceable technology. Russia's air force, once a symbol of power and intimidation, has become a target-rich environment for Ukraine's increasingly sophisticated air defenses. Every sortie is a gamble, with the skies over Ukraine now among the most dangerous in the world for Russian pilots. Meanwhile, Ukraine is steadily replenishing its forces with advanced Western systems, modern tanks, precision artillery, and cutting-edge anti-aircraft weapons. In stark contrast, Russia is forced to dig deep into its aging stockpiles, sending decades-old equipment to the front lines in a desperate attempt to fill the gaps. The war has become a race, Ukraine's growing quality and technological edge versus Russia's rapidly dwindling quantity. Each new delivery of Western aid tips the balance further, while Russia struggles to maintain even basic operational capability. Every day, the balance of power shifts further away from Moscow. The front lines are in constant motion, but the trend is clear. Russian losses are mounting, and their ability to replace them is fading. Time and attrition are now firmly on Ukraine's side. With each passing week, Ukrainian forces grow stronger, while Russia's military edge erodes at an accelerating pace. Russia's military edge is vanishing fast, leaving its commanders scrambling for solutions as the cost of this war becomes ever more unsustainable. Few images capture the scale of Russia's military crisis, quite like the sight of Soviet-era tanks, long forgotten and left to rust, now being dragged back into service. The world is witnessing a surreal moment. A superpower, once feared for its cutting-edge armored divisions, is now forced to resurrect relics from a bygone era. These ancient machines, some untouched for decades, are being hastily pulled from storage facilities and military warehouses, their tarps thrown aside as crews scramble to make them operational once more. The T-62, a tank first introduced in the early 1960s, is now being loaded onto rail cars and shipped to the front lines. Many of these vehicles show their age, rusted exteriors, worn tracks, and outdated technology that can barely keep up with today's battlefield demands. Even more astonishing, Russia is deploying T-54s and T-55s, tanks designed in the immediate aftermath of World War II. These machines, once symbols of Soviet might, are now rolling toward Ukraine, their engines coughing to life after years of neglect. On the modern battlefield, these museum pieces are hopelessly outclassed. Advanced anti-tank missiles and Western-supplied armor make short work of their thin steel plating and outdated guns. The result is a graveyard of shattered metal, a stark reminder of how far military technology has advanced. For the Russian soldiers assigned to these 70-year-old tanks, the experience is grim. Climbing into a vehicle that predates their own parents, they know the odds are stacked against them. Morale plummets as crews realize they're being sent into battle with equipment that offers little protection and even less hope of survival. The logistical nightmare doesn't end there. Spare parts for these obsolete tanks are almost impossible to find, and the few mechanics who remember how to repair them are stretched thin. Every breakdown becomes a major setback, further straining Russia's already overburdened supply lines. Ammunition is another headache. These tanks require shells that are no longer standard issue, forcing logisticians to dig through old stockpiles and cobble together whatever they can find. This patchwork approach only adds to the chaos and confusion at the front. When these tanks finally reach the battlefield, their vulnerabilities are exposed almost immediately. Their weak armor and outdated firepower make them easy prey for modern anti-tank weapons, leading to heavy losses and further eroding the effectiveness of Russian armored units. The world is watching as Russia, once a titan of military innovation, is forced to fight with relics. International observers see this as a clear admission of failure, a sign that the Russian war machine is running on fumes. The choice facing Russian commanders is no longer between old and new tanks. It's a stark decision between deploying outdated vehicles or having no tanks at all. The production lines that once churned out modern armor now stand silent, unable to keep pace with the demands of war. The myth of Russian technological superiority has been shattered. Each destroyed tank, each abandoned relic, is a symbol of a military struggling to maintain its image and its relevance on the world stage. Russia's defense industry can't keep up with the pace of destruction. Factories boast about output, but most new tanks are just refurbished Soviet models. Actual new tank production is a trickle, dozens per month, while hundreds are lost in combat. Sanctions have cut off vital Western components, forcing Russia to use inferior substitutes or omit key features. Skilled workers are gone, drafted or dead, leaving an aging, shrinking workforce. The result: slower production, lower quality, and no innovation. High battlefield losses demand more equipment, but factories can only churn out subpar replacements. These are destroyed even faster, creating a vicious, unsustainable cycle. Russia is burning through its Soviet inheritance and its ability to make more. Without a dramatic change, the 2026 deadline isn't a forecast, it's a warning. The industrial base is cracking under the strain. The war machine is running on fumes. Ukraine has turned the battlefield into a high-tech meat grinder, thanks to drones. Cheap recon drones give Ukraine real-time eyes everywhere, exposing Russian positions and supply lines. Artillery and HIMARS units strike with deadly precision, guided by instant drone intel. FPV drones, piloted directly into targets, destroy tanks and vehicles for a fraction of the cost. Russia's electronic warfare can't keep up. For every drone jammed, 10 more appear. Russian troops weld cope cages onto tanks, but these offer little real protection. The psychological toll is immense. Russian soldiers are under constant threat from above. Drones have accelerated Russian losses, breaking the old model of massed armor and artillery. Ukraine's innovation is pushing Russia's war machine to the brink. The future of warfare is here, and Russia is losing the tech race. Russia's industrial collapse has forced it to beg for weapons from pariah states. North Korea supplies unreliable, outdated shells, often duds, sometimes dangerous to Russian crews. Iran provides drones, highlighting Russia's failure to develop its own. These imports are low quality, straining logistics and degrading Russian artillery effectiveness. Russia, once a top arms exporter, now relies on North Korea and Iran to keep fighting. The world sees a superpower scavenging for scraps. The war effort is running on borrowed time. Russia's air force started with an edge, but now it's in crisis. Over 100 jets and bombers lost. Many more grounded for lack of spare parts. Sanctions have cut off Western avionics and components, forcing cannibalization of aircraft. Maintenance crews are overwhelmed and operational jets dwindle. Ukrainian air defenses force Russian pilots to launch from afar, reducing effectiveness and increasing risk. Even Russia's vaunted air defense systems are being pulled from the front to protect assets deep inside the country. The skies over Ukraine are now contested and deadly for Russian pilots. Air power, once a strength, is now a glaring weakness. Russia isn't just running out of tanks, it's running out of people. Hundreds of thousands of casualties have gutted the professional army, replaced by poorly trained conscripts and convicts. Combat effectiveness and morale have plummeted. The defense industry is also bleeding talent. Skilled workers drafted or fleeing the country. Factories are short-staffed, relying on aging workers and untrained labor. The demographic crisis, an aging, shrinking workforce, has only accelerated. The Kremlin's quick fixes can't replace lost expertise or experience. Even with raw materials, Russia lacks the skilled hands to build modern weapons. The erosion of human capital is a slow poison. The war machine is hollowed out from within. Russia's war is devouring its own future. Military spending now consumes over a third of the federal budget, starving healthcare, education, and infrastructure. Sanctions and falling energy revenues are squeezing the Kremlin's finances. Moscow raids reserves, prints rubles, and forces businesses to buy government debt. Classic signs of a state in crisis. Inflation rises, public services decline, and daily life gets harder for ordinary Russians. The social contract, stability in exchange for passivity, is breaking down. By 2026, depleted stockpiles, a crippled workforce, and a collapsing economy will force impossible choices. The flow of men and machines will slow to a trickle. The war may end not with a treaty, but with the quiet collapse of Russia's ability to fight. The real defeat will be written in empty factories and broken budgets.